We are now going to begin session 2 titled The Fourth Industrial Revolution, Shaping the Future of Urban Tourism. Just like in the previous session, we have live Q&A during this session as well. Once again, please use the QR code on your name tags to download our Summit application. And if you go to Program, you will find Session Talk, and that is where you can upload your questions. This session, we will focus on the current opportunities and challenges presented by technology, new platform tourism services, the transformation in new business models, and labor force and mobility patterns. It is my pleasure to introduce the moderator, Professor Dimitrios BUHALIS, head of the Department of Tourism and Hospitality at Bournemouth University of United Kingdom. Please welcome Professor BUHALIS with a warm round of applause.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be back in Korea. Thank you to the UNWTO and to colleagues for inviting us to engage in this conversation and look into the future of urban tourism. I'd like to bring my panel up, and then we'll do some introductory kind of slides, and then we'll go into the conversation. So if I can ask Diana ROBINO from Mastercard, if I can ask Jackson Peck from Amadeus, if I can ask Fabio MONTANHEIRO from Sao Paulo in Brazil, and then if I can ask Lee Donggun from Korea, from My Real Trip, Yael FROMAN-IDESES from Tel Aviv Global and Tourism in Israel, and Dionisis KOLOKOTSAS from Google, please. So what we are here to do is to talk about the fourth industrial revolution and how it's going to change urban tourism and how it's going to engage urban tourism in the future. I'd like to show you a few slides very quickly to show you to stimulate your thinking and kind of formulate the discussion and as we're going through. If I can have the slides, please. And I've got to show you quite a lot of slides within 5 minutes because Sandra is watching. So when we are talking about destinations, all destinations, they more or less have got to do some basic principles, which really about have a competitive destination that maximizes the benefits that they bring through tourism to the society. It's really about differentiation, it's really about enhancing reputation, and it's all about creating business models for the ecosystem in the marketplace to maximize benefits. When you look into urban destinations, and if you look into the big cities, we'll have a whole range of cities by 2030 that will have more than 10 million inhabitants. And these are especially the big cities that they are driving the technology, because big cities are driving smart cities, because we've got to manage them. When we trying to understand what smart tourism and smart cities is, quite a lot of times people are talking about anything that is related with technology, but it's not. Smartness takes advantage of interoperability and interconnectivity of integrated technologies to re-engineer process and data in order to produce innovative services, products, and procedures towards maximizing value for all stakeholders. So when we are talking about smartness, I really want you to think about networks. It's really about optimizing the network using technology and creating all this value for all the stakeholders that are out there. This is some of the publications that we do on the area, and what they say really is that smartness is not about technology. It's technology is an input, but then you require knowledge through people and leadership through governance to bring them all together on the smartness, smart economic actors, social actors and technological actors, and then you create the conditions in order to maximize the value that's being co-created. So smartness is not about technology, but it's really the glue that brings everything together, and all the networks that they are mutually beneficial, and they provide real-time, dynamic and adaptive solutions based on the context, based on the customization and individualization of products. To do that, you need to have several catalysts, and the catalysts are networks. They are the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything, sensors and beacons, big data, data analytics, social media, Web 2, a user-generated content, service-dominant logic and the value co-creation theory, and the competition between all the different actors. To facilitate smartness, you need sensors. And there are a lot of different sensors in different machines and equipment that will enable us to collect big data. There'll be a lot of data that's coming through wearables. And those data will be collected in real time. And of course, social media. So we'll be able to follow a whole range of activities that are happening in a particular place, like in Seoul today, based on the activity that's happening on social media. This is the conversation prism by Brian Solis, which says, how can we engage in collecting all this data in real time, and how can we doing data mining in real time to come up with solutions? So basically what we do with social media is listen, engage, learn, and co-create, and we continue this in order to improve the brand and in order to improve the proposition to consumers. And of course, when we talk about social media, we talk about the Western social media and the Chinese social media because they are different. You need to look at both of them. Father, I've sinned. I already know. What's happening is that all the information is out there, and we're engaging with that information. And we're analyzing, and then we're sending back through beacons solutions on applications on social media. Now, we're looking to the 2030 vision, and where we're going with all these things. And quite often, I'm asking around the world, are we ready for 2030? Are you ready for 2030? Quite often, our tourism industry is analog. You're still getting receptions like that. Quite often, we are managing the way that we're doing things in the past. We're looking in the mirror. In the last 20 years, I was doing these processes. But we're not necessarily adapting process for the future. And quite often, we do not adopt technologies. We would like to do things in a traditional way. I used to be a photographer in my youth. Do you remember Kodak? Anybody remembers Nokia? Anybody remembers BlackBerry? What happened to these companies? Unless we really take advantage of these things, our destinations will be obsolete. Who wants change? Who wants to change? And who wants to lead change? People in the tourism industry do not always welcome change. They like to do things in a traditional way. And we find really, really challenging to engage with some of these things. So this is a framework that we're developing, which is called Sokomo Marketing, which is really about taking contextual information, individualize it, and provide solutions in the middle where you've got on the one side travelers, on the other side the tourism industry, and communicates that with connected devices. And ultimately what happens is you'll have on the one side the tourism supply creating data. All this data is going up on the cloud, and then it's coming down as a storm of value to consumers, and then you create, again, information and data that's emerging to generate that again. Now, this is always happening in the tourism industry, but in the past, this will take a couple of years. Now it takes a couple of seconds. And a lot of those things are changing the way we do things. I also like to give you 1 minute of some of the solutions that are emerging that will change totally what we do in tourism. Robots, and how we're going to engage with robotics. This is the Hena Hotel in Japan. Cleaning services with robots, room service, dockless bicycles and sharing. So increasingly we're going to share the resources. We're not going to own the resources. The resources will be available and the resources will be coming to us. The enterprise car club that you can rent a car or you can leave the car in the neighborhood. So you don't own a car, but you share a car. And then increasingly autonomous vehicles, because that will change the way that we operate in urban situations. Because you wouldn't need to own your car will come, a car will come, you'll drive it, or the car is going to drive itself. the car will communicate with everybody else and will be fully aware of its position and everything else that's happening. So you may not need 2.5 hours to come from the airport downtown. And then the car becomes a cinema and a virtual reality pod that travels around. And again, that will enable us to do all kinds of things with augmented reality and virtual reality. Intelligence, the ability to adapt to change and driving change. And that is something that we're going to discuss here on the panel. So these introductory remarks, which I hope was less than 5 minutes, because otherwise Sandra is not going to speak to me afterwards. That hopefully stimulate a little bit of conversation that we're going to have in a minute. So here is our panel. If I can ask our panel to introduce yourselves for 1 minute and say what is your company doing and how you engage and how you see your company contributing to urban tourism. We start with Diane.
Good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Diana Robino from Mastercard. I manage globally the tourism partnerships, and Mastercard has been quite involved with the smart cities for the last 4 years. We're working with over 120 cities around the world, using our technology for payments, but also our data analytics to support cities and governments to make better decisions, to understand the impact of their policies, and to also review infrastructure forecasts.
Thank you. Jackson?
Hi, Jackson Peck. I'm with Amadeus. Many of you are aware of Amadeus. It was mentioned earlier by the mayor of Nice. We are a company that is a travel technology provider. And we were born out of airlines in the beginning, but we've expanded our business in order to essentially use data throughout the entire travel cycle. So from inspiration to booking to being on the trip to post-trip, our goal is to sort of connect all of that together. And this plays well into the smart cities concept because, as was mentioned in the previous panel, it's the use of that data and the harnessing of that data, especially by Mr. Po from Singapore. That is the key. And so we hope to be a part of that.
Thank you. Fabio.
Hello. My name is Fabio. I'm the coordinator for the Observatory of Tourism and Events in the city of São Paulo. And you know, we play a very important role, and as we say, as smart tourism, because I mean, we work with data, and we produce data, we produce researches, and more important, all the data and in its raw form is available for anyone who can work with that and then and take some analysis with this data. So besides publishing all the reports that we do with the researchers, you can go look for the data and produce your own reports.
Okay. Lee?
네, 안녕하세요. 저는 마이리얼 트립에서 마이리얼 트립 창업하고 대표로 일하고 있는 이동건이라고 합니다. 저는 마이리얼 트립을 대학교 졸업반인 2012년에 창업해서 지금 6년째 회사를 운영하고 있고요. 마이리얼 트립은 자유여행자를 위한 플랫폼인데 특히 이제 항공 숙박뿐만 아니라 현지에서 즐길 수 있는 투어나 액티비티들을 중개하는 걸 메인 비즈니스로 하고 있습니다. 현재 전 세계 610개 도시에서 16,000개 정도의 투어나 액티비티를 중개하고 있고 저희는 한국에서 가장 빨리 성장하고 있는 트래블 테크 스타트업입니다.
Thank you very much. Yael?
Hello everyone, my name is Yael and I'm from Tel Aviv Global and Tourism. We are a municipality-owned company responsible for the tourism in Tel Aviv, for the economic development and for the global marketing of Tel Aviv in Israel. And my job is basically to develop the next generation of tourism in Tel Aviv, so kind of bringing all the information to the tourists in the most personalized and easy way for him to tour in Tel Aviv. We're going to talk about it later, I guess.
Thank you. And Dionisis?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the invitation. Great to be, by coincidence, with another compatriot from Greece on the same panel. I'm Dionisis, I work for Google, and I look after inclusive growth policies in Asia Pacific. I hope most of you know of Google, but our role is to make information accessible and useful to everyone around the world. And my role within that is to make sure that policy making in the region happens in a way that business and users can both benefit from the benefits of the technology brings to our daily life and enables innovators like many of you in this room to bring new services and opportunities to people around the world.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. So we are basically here for you. So what we'll do is we'll have a conversation, and the conversation will be structured on three things. Where are we now? How can technologies and smartness help urban tourism? Where would we like to go with the 2030 vision? And what do we expect that's going to happen from now until 2030? And what do we think tourism will look like in 2030? And then the third element will be how we're going to get there, and what are the catalysts, what are the policies, what are the technologies, what's going to happen in order for us to be able to go to 2030. But I don't want to spend an hour just talking among ourselves. I would like you to start thinking about questions, put them on the application, and hopefully we'll come back later on and engage with some of your questions. The more questions we have, the better it is, because we can answer back to what you like to really know. So to start the conversation, if I can ask Diana to start the conversation, then anybody else can chip in, do you think that cities and urban tourism is taking advantage of what is out there, and do they engage with the technologies right now?
The level of awareness is there. I mean, the reason we're here together and having a full dedicated summit to the subject indicates that governments are interested and that the private sector, as well as civic partners, are also coming together to form this ecosystem. That is what is going to actually move the digital transformation agenda. So yes, we're moving. There is a level of readiness that we're going to have to work with in terms of breaking the silos of data and collaborating in a different way from what we have done before. But I think that we are moving forward, and we just have to create a roadmap of digital transformation and collaborate to actually get the results that we need. When we hear proof points, data, statistics, as we have been hearing today, that by 2050, 70% of the world's population is going to be living in cities, we have to put that in perspective. That means that every month, 6 million people around the world are moving to urban areas. I mean, think about it. That's about the size of the Madrid metro area or Singapore. Is the equivalent of it. So if we put that in perspective, let's realize that it's happening now. It's not that it's going to happen in 2030, in 2040, or in 2050. It's starting to happen now. The pressure will be on the cities to actually be able to upgrade their infrastructures, to support those citizens that are moving to the cities to have a better standard of living. And then with tourism growing faster than GDP, we're going to expect that the visitors are also going to come into these tourist destinations, and we have the responsibility to come together and make the smart cities smart destinations.
Absolutely. And you can see that a lot in Asia, but also in some places in South America. And Fabio, I was recently going through Sao Paulo, and in Sao Paulo you kind of feel a big city. What's the population of Sao Paulo?
12 million.
12 million.
Yeah.
And it's going to 16 very soon, I understand.
Very
it's kind
soon.
of, unless you have a helicopter, you cannot cross the city,
move,
right?
Yeah.
So how does Sao Paulo take advantage of technology? How does Sao Paulo engage in all those data that's available, because masses of data, to do better tourism?
You know, that's interesting because it's part of a question, and we all know that if we talk about global cities like São Paulo and urban tourism, the motivations are not clear. If you have a destination like sun and beach destination, you know why your tourist is going there, but in a city like São Paulo, you have to go through data and loads of data. You have to go through social media, you have to go through researches, you have to go through other data like credit card data, for example, and then you have to ask the right questions about that. Doesn't matter if you have loads of data if you don't ask the right questions, and also you have to make it available for the players to work with that and to take projects out of that. So I could give an example. It's not really from São Paulo, but we've been looking for some stuff like that in other destinations because we have a huge problem in São Paulo that is mobility. So the city of Palo Alto in California, they developed sensors for the parking spaces downtown because they knew through data that drivers would drive around and around looking for parking spaces, and that would increase traffic. So we're working with some technology like that right now in São Paulo, so we can provide better mobility, for example, to people that are going for parking spaces downtown.
Okay. So you're looking into applications that they can have incremental benefits to different things. Mobility being the obvious one in Sao Paulo, but there are a lot of other things that can be done.
Exactly.
If I can bring Yael in with your destination experience, and how can Israel and...
Yeah. So I'm sure you all know Israel is known for the startup nation. Tel Aviv is known as a startup city. We have 1,700 startups in the city because technology is one of the most important and things we're most known of. And one of 10 startups is dealing with travel tech. Okay, so we have quite a few startups dealing with all aspects of travel. So you have car sharing and travel, an app that can plan your whole trip as a shared economy app. And we in Tel Aviv try to get to know all these apps and transfer this information to our tourists, okay, so they can enjoy all this technology tourism has to offer. And I'm sure this is going to only get stronger and stronger as the years go, because it's not only about new tourism and urban tourism, it's about new tourists. Okay, tourists no longer go around with books. They want to have everything online, everything updated. So this is why we try to bring them the cutting edge of technology for their trip to be easier, faster, and like it was said in the morning, time well spent. That's very important technology-wise.
So from the customer point of view, the customer wants value for time.
Yes.
And quite often when we say value for money, it doesn't necessarily mean that will be cheaper, but it means that what I get, the value I get out of that.
It means that when I travel, I want to spend my time on things that I like to do, that I like to see. I want to know where to go. I want to spend my money in the places that will serve my interests.
Yeah, and I was saying to someone, you know, we are all tourists, business tourists in Seoul today, and I probably have about 72 hours in Seoul, and I'm trying to optimize the 72 hours because the last time I was here was probably 10 years ago, right? And it's really about how can I get the best shows tonight? How can I get to the restaurants I really like?
Right.
And I think, Lee, you are speaking with consumers because your application is primarily consumer-facing, right? Do you see what they would like to do, and how does your technology help them to do that?
기본적으로 이제 여행자들 같은 경우에는 그 여행을 하는 데 있어서 크게 세 가지 정도가 필요한데, 항공권을 예약하고 숙소를 예약한 다음에 결과적으로는 이제 그 진짜 그 도시에서 그 데스티네이션에서 여행을 하는 건데요. 근데 저희가 봤던 기회는 항공권이나 숙박을 예약하는 거는 요새 트래블 테크 회사들이 너무 많이 나와가지고 너무 잘 되고 있어요. 뭐 익스피디아나 부킹닷컴이라든지 스카이스캐너 같은 회사들로부터 우리가 이제 항공권이나 숙박은 굉장히 쉽게 예약을 할 수가 있는데, 저희가 이제 여행자들 관점에서 초점을 맞췄던 거는 현지에서 즐기는 경험이죠. 저희가 여행이라고 부르는 것들은 내가 거기 가서 뭐 하지, 뭘 먹지, 뭐 하고 놀지, 뭘 보지, 이런 부분에 관한 부분들인데, 부킹닷컴이나 이제 익스피디아 같은 회사들이 굉장히 잘하지만 그런 부분에 있어서는 저희가 볼 때 여전히 여행자들이 어려움을 겪고 있다라고 봤었고, 그래서 마이리얼 트립 같은 경우에는 여행자들이 현지에 도착했을 때 내가 뭐 할지 모르겠을 때 아주 쉽게 모바일로 현지에서 할 수 있는 투어나 액티비티들을 예약하는 서비스를 지금 하고 있고요. 이거는 이제 그냥 한국 여행자만의 문제는 아니고 굉장히 글로벌한 현상입니다. 그래서 항공 숙박 쪽에는 굉장히 큰 회사들이 잘 하고 있지만 이 투어즈 앤 액티비티 같은 경우에는 전 세계 각지에서 굉장히 빠르게 성장하는 스타트업들이 나와서 각 지역의 여행자들이 보다 풍부한 경험의 여행을 할 수 있도록 도와주고 있고, 가장 예를 들기 좋은 사례는 최근에 에어비앤비 같은 경우에도 원래 어코모데이션 숙박만 하다가 최근에 익스피리언스라고 해서 그 부분들을 넓힌 거, 그게 이제 가장 가까운 사례인 것 같습니다. 네.
It's very interesting what you're saying, because a lot of people don't realize that on consumer behavior for tourism, there is the first big decisions that people are making. And the big decision is primarily about flights or transportation. If you have to fly, if you have to go somewhere by car for an hour or two, it's not a big decision because there is not a lot of risk and not a lot of planning required. So the big decision is really the flight and then the accommodation. And what happens next is that some people plan in advance, so they know day one I'll go to this restaurant, day two I'm gonna go to this tour, to this theater and things like that. But a lot of people are increasingly do that on the go. And the reason why they do it on the go is now they've got real-time data, context-based services that they find on location. And quite often they don't have the tools to do that. Many destinations, they still have paper kind of brochures that they give you, but increasingly you find different services that companies like yours integrate together, so they are able to take that forward. I'll bring Dionisis here in because Google is my best friend, really, wherever I go, and I travel all the time. And it's quite interesting how you aggregate information very, very quickly. I was in Hawaii, and I was trying to look into Hawaii 5.0. I was on a Hawaii 5.0 experience. And I went on the Hawaii Tourist Board, and I looked into what information have they got about Hawaii 5.0. And the only information they had was that Hawaii 5.0 is filmed in Hawaii. Perfect, right? And then by Googling around, finding what's happening, there's a community of people who are actually discussing about Hawaii 5.0, where they're filming, what they're doing, and I could hook into that community and be part of this community. And the other thing I'm going to say is last time I was in Korea, I was getting lost all the time because I couldn't read Korean, obviously, and I was jet-lagged and I was walking around, I couldn't find my way. And I found a way of doing it. It's basically follow the metro, because the metro is marked in colors, in numbers, in English, and in Korean. So I could find my way, because on the map it was impossible to do anything. Now, I say Google Maps, where am I? Where do I want to go? And gives me an estimate on how long it's going to take for me to go, and live estimate as well, which is quite interesting. How long would it take me to cross this part of road? So how is Google dealing with all this information for tourism?
I was wishing you are not going to finish this great introduction with this question. First of all, you touched upon a few things. May I disagree with something you said or you left earlier in the air, that we see that the sector sometimes is a little bit reluctant to change. I don't have hard facts in hand, but I think actually tourism and the travel sector is one of the sectors who is far more open to try new things, and there is a lot of innovation going on. Beyond the traditional ICT sector, there is a lot of engagement. You know, we had so many times the word data and data analytics, and Diane said earlier, you know, Mastercard is a technology company, right? So it's a lot of forward-thinking approach in the travel sector.
It's a little bit frustrating because I've been in this business for about 30 years and we could do so much better. Yes, tourism is better than other sectors, but we can do so much better. That's my thing.
I'm sure we can, and technology, helps companies and nations and communities to leapfrog. And I think that's where we are today. We're just seeing the pickup of how innovators as well as destinations are picking up on all the features that technology gives them. But we need to keep a few things in mind. I think you just revealed your age. You mentioned paper. I don't think that the new millennial would ever talk about, the new traveler, the millennials will talk about paper. They don't know what paper is in travel.
Or Lonely Planet or anything like that.
And we need to look at this in two ways. On the one hand, the traditional traveler is spending 3 months, I heard previously, up to even 6 months in dreaming, in planning the next trip. And then we have each one of us, and especially the younger generation, which is, I want everything now in my hands, in my mobile phone.
Instant.
More than 80% of millennials say, I don't care if I forgot my toiletries. I don't care if there is no breakfast in my accommodation. What I care is free internet. Because that's how I can plan my day. That's how I can summarize and share my experiences online late in the night when I come back home. And I think we need to keep this in mind as we look forward on how the sector will benefit from technology. And you asked about Google. I mean, Google is, as I said earlier, we're trying to make information available to everyone. And we're actually trying to help the different ecosystems to come up with innovations for growth. So I think there's a lot still to be done. If I can show some sympathy to your concerns about how fast we can continue growing, I think, and keeping my hat as a government relations person in Asia Pacific, I think one thing we need to make sure of is that we have the right policy framework that does not create obstacles in how digital platforms work and how data flow from one territory to the other. I think this is very important. And I can elaborate more on that later.
Yeah, fantastic. And Jackson, you represent Amadeus, and I grew up with Amadeus because it was really the mother. The GDSs, they were the mothers and the fathers of all the technology that we do. How is the technology, the GDS technology, and the platforms that Amadeus is now offering? How does it facilitate all the tourism industry? And who are your key partners in this game?
Sure. A very good question, thanks. In fact, on the way here, on the plane, I was reading an article in the Harvard Business Review, and it actually talked about Alibaba, which we all know as the Chinese e-commerce conglomerate, the giant, one of the 10 largest companies in the world in terms of market capitalization. And I think this particular article explains how Sao Paulo, how Tel Aviv, how different companies have essentially become smart over time. And to me, it really struck me, this article, because it set out four different steps that you have to do. So first of all, what it mentioned, and this is something that Amadeus has also gone down the evolution. First of all, you need to datafy. So going back to the gentleman from Bogota, he talked about all of the bikes. Now, if you remember what it was like to rent a bike 10 years ago, right? So I remember going down to Lumpini Park. I live in Bangkok. And I would go up and I would say I'd like to rent a bike. I would give my identification. I would give some money. I would say, here, this is the bike. He would go and unlock it. I would take the bike, ride off, but I'd have to be back before 5 p.m. because that was when the guy left, right? And then I would come back. I would pay for it. I would collect back my ID. We all know now that doesn't exist, right? All of these bike places are not even manned, or personed, I should say. It's all through an app, right? And so datafying, imagine you know everything about that person. When somebody comes to rent a bike now, you know who that is. You know where they're going. You know how long they have the bike. You know about their financial wherewithal, perhaps, right? You have some input into their financial history. So datafy everything, and that's something we've done. Second of all, After you've datafied, and I won't use examples for all of these, software everything. And so that means that every single business activity should be mediated by software. And that means a lot of different platforms and a lot of different applications. But the third step, make sure all of these software applications can speak to each other. That's tough, right? Because that means a lot of different APIs, it means a lot of communication protocols, but you need all of this to be able to come together. And then finally, it's apply algorithms. So you got tons of data, from this example of all the people using the bikes, and you know when to repair them, you know which ones are flat and all of this. You've got all of this data. Get good data scientists, bring them in, make sure that whatever data that you have is actionable, and that then makes you into sort of a smart city, a smart company, or a smart business. And so Amadeus has gone through that evolution also. But I thought, I encourage everybody. Harvard Business Review, the September-October issue, talks about Alibaba and how it's been successful.
Fantastic. And you touched something that's very close to my heart and a lot of the research that I'm doing currently, which is really the silos. The data silos. And everybody's collecting data, but they are really very close to their heart. And it's really about how do we engage in conversation? How can I find data from Mastercard to understand where people go, what people buy, what time they buy, which nationality buys what kind of things, and all those things? Or how can I collect data about traffic? And how can I tell people in Sao Paulo that you should really avoid the rush hour, or you should avoid those streets at this time? Or how can you never find the parking place there? Or in your situation, how can I know in real time what is the inventory that's available out, right now that I could possibly package and do a dynamic packaging, and how many empty seats are tonight in Nanda? My dream is to go and see Nanda again in Seoul. How can I find this information? How can this information float around so everybody can have access to that and package it and engage? Diana?
I mean, these are the times that call for collaboration and having these ecosystems. But again, let's keep in mind, how important privacy is, right? So one thing is to talk about data, and another thing is to talk about insights. So in terms of insights, Mastercard, shares and works with different partners in terms of the insights of our aggregated and anonymous data, can be, developed to make these decisions that we were talking about before. But I think that we have to keep in mind, the difference between data and insights, because it does have an impact on privacy. So, for example, we do have tools where we actually aggregate data for tourism insights and that have our aggregated and anonymous data, also with actually the booking information from Amadeus, from Sabre, from Travelport. We have also information from other sources, from TripAdvisors, from social media, and with that information and our information, we're actually able to give these insights to a destination where they can actually see, for a city, what are the countries of origin, when did they started dreaming for this vacation, when they started searching. The average traveler looks at 38 sites as they start dreaming and looking for a holiday. And then when they land, they go ahead and they start, downloading all this information for their visit, which I think that, it was widely discussed earlier by the cities. The cities, has a lot of power in terms of providing these apps, because they are the official app, for that city, and the traveler is going to look at them as the official source of information. So again, it's all about collaboration. It might not be a platform that they develop. It might be developed by another partner. We have transit solutions where we have worked with labs and with different partners to actually mobilize people much quicker through metros and address the mobility issues in Medellin for buses or in London for the metro. So it's all about partnerships, and everything that gets digitalized, as we're talking about, it actually becomes data and insights that is going to help us make better decisions later.
That's very interesting, and quite often people are really concerned about privacy, but it's not about the individual, it's really about the flows, and it's really about
trends,
the
yes.
trends. And you know, for example, we're doing some work with Thessaloniki in the north of Greece, and we know that a lot of Israeli tourists are going to Thessaloniki, but we know the pattern that they follow, because they don't follow the same pattern with customers from England or from France, because they've got different interests. They're going to different places, because they are historical places that they all engage in this kind of conversation. So if I understand that this segment is interested in this thing, and that segment is interested in this thing, and the segments may not be nationalities, may be age, it may be special interest, you know, the bikers. If I've got bikers in Sao Paulo, I'll give them a totally different experience than the people who are going by bus or the people who go by car, right? So from your destination point of view, how do you aggregate information? How do you break the silos really and bring them into things that are useful for you?
Okay, so you know, when we talked about smart city in the past years, we talked about know the people, know what they want, know what they need. So Tel Aviv has been doing this with residents. We have a resident card which aggregates all the information as for what's to do in the city and personalize it for the residents. What we want to do next is exactly what you're saying. So it's not only Israeli versus British tourists. It's an Israeli tourist at a certain age with certain interests. That's one information system you have, and then the second one is all the events and all the tourist attractions you have in the city. Now you need a very, very smart information city which knows how to give the specific information to the specific tourist. And that's how you get a personalized trip, a trip that is well spending your time and money during your stay. So in Tel Aviv, this is what we're going to do. We're going to collect all the information regarding tourists based on attractions and events. And we're going to start learning what kind, well, we know, but specify what kind of tourists are coming to Tel Aviv. And then we're going to cross this information from one system of information to another.
Very good. So you bring all those things and you segment in small segments and you provide things.
You do.
Lee, is something that you kind of do on your applications? How do you segment? How do you collect information to actually create products?
네, 저희 같은 경우에는 이제 역시 데이터 분석을 되게 중요하게 생각해서 데이터만 분석하는 팀이 따로 있고요. 그리고 데이터 웨어하우스라는 것을 이제 구축을 했습니다. 모든 마이리얼 트립의 데이터가 다 모이는 곳인데 특히 저희에게 이제 굉장히 유용한 데이터는 항공권을 살 때 여행자들이 기입하는 데이터입니다. 왜냐면은 여행자분들께서는 이제 항공권을 사게 되면서 본인이 며칠부터 며칠까지 여행을 할 거고 본인의 데스티네이션이 어디이며 그리고 이제 뭐 비즈니스의 그 항공권의 클래스, 비즈니스 클래스인지 이코노미 클래스인지 이런 것들을 이제 입력하게 되는데요. 그런 경우 이제 저희는 이런 것을 바탕으로 이제 일종의 프로파일, 페르소나를 만들 수가 있습니다. 이 여행자가 이 여행에서 뭘 기대하고 있고 얼만큼 정도를 이제 쓸 것이며 무슨 맥락으로 이 여행을 하는지를. 그래서 저희는 그거에 맞는 아주 자연스러운 고급 호텔부터 아니면 저렴한 게스트하우스까지 추천을 할 수 있고, 그리고 투어 앤 액티비티 같은 경우에도 구매력이 굉장히 높고 이번 여행에 돈을 굉장히 많이 쓰는 여행자 같은 경우에는 저희가 굉장히 프라이빗한 밴으로 다니는, 고급 밴으로 다니는 투어를 추천해 줄 수도 있고, 아니면 어떤 여행자 같은 경우에는 굉장히 저예산으로 이제 백패커 완전 배낭여행 스타일로 이제 다니는 여행자라면 굉장히 유용한 그 도시에서 쓸 수 있는 뭐 72시간 교통 패스 이런 것들을 추천해 줄 수 있겠죠. 그래서 저희는 이거를 크로스셀이라고 부르고, 이 크로스셀 같은 경우 저희 비즈니스를 이제 하는 데 있어서 굉장히 비즈니스의 그 지속 가능성, 서스테이너빌리티와 완전히 맞닿아 있기 때문에 이 부분에 대해서 이제 굉장히 많은 투자를 하고 있고요. 비단 이런 부분은 이제 저희만의 현상이 아니라 아주 굉장히 큰 회사들, 역시 해외 아까 언급했던 이제 뭐 익스피디아나 부킹닷컴 같은 해외 대형 OTA들 역시도 굉장히 이런 부분에 많은 투자를 하고 있는 것으로 알고 있습니다. 네.
Dionis, I guess that you know a lot about every one of us.
Personally, I know nothing. Pleasure to meet you.
Okay, that's great. But you have information. How do you aggregate information that you are? How does Google aggregate information that you are collecting, and how can that help destinations to actually bring the best out of them and achieve their objectives?
I wish I had the brain capacity to explain you how the Google algorithm works in details, but basically, I think we all understand how, I'm talking about the search piece at least. I don't think that we can expect Google or any company like Google to, to do all the work itself. I think the beauty of the internet world is that everybody can have access to this data, to those tools, and move on. It's great to hear all these fantastic examples from around the world. I'm also keeping in mind a statistic I heard recently, which is about 54% of companies, especially in Asia, struggle to find people to help them manage the data analytics and drive insights out of those data and leverage all these new tools out there, all these cloud-based tools. So I think we should not underestimate the importance of supporting the ecosystem to build the digital skills. Yes, the future is bright, but we need to invest, each one of us, public and private, to get there. And I think we have Mario in the room from PATA. I just came straight from PATA's Travel Mart. PATA, the Asia Pacific Travel Association, just published a report, and we supported the report. We're very proud to do that, which basically estimated the potential for 12 countries in Asia Pacific by leveraging data and digital platforms. And it actually gave some best practices. One was actually from Korea, Lanoja, if I pronounce it correctly, probably Yanoja, pronounce it correctly, thank you. Basically it showed that if the sector really leverages the digital opportunity, then we can have another 9 million jobs actually in the region, and about 0.5 to 1% GDP growth from country to country. Let's not forget that travel is about 10 plus 20% of the different economies in the region. So therefore, there's a great opportunity. Another thing that the report from PATA told us is that in order to get there, we need to set things right. I mentioned before policies that facilitate free data flows. That's a no-brainer. And I'm raising the point again because there are some countries in the region who have second thoughts about how the policy environment for data management should look like. I think it would be a missed opportunity if we start creating obstacles in leveraging data and data flows. The second, and I would say even more important thing that the report told us, is we need to close the skills gap. And the skills gaps vary from country to country. Korea, Japan, Hong Kong are great examples in this region. Scandinavian countries or Germany in Europe or other countries in North America, they're doing well. But there's a great opportunity in many other countries, and actually even in particular countries, certain communities that should not be left behind. So we need to address the digital skills gap. That was the second. And the third, there are two more recommendations. I will skip one, but the third, and I would say it's a fundamental recommendation we should be looking at, is digital infrastructure. No traveler will be able to benefit. No SME or local unicorn will be able to, fly out in the global market if there is no 4G, 5G, 10G, whatever the technology, but if it's not really state-of-the-art infrastructure out there. And we're talking about urban tourism. I won't forget that, my hat is inclusive growth. Yes, cities are important destinations for travelers, but I think the growth in many countries will come from the neighboring areas outside big cities or remote areas. I'll take Indonesia as an example, 15,000 islands. We should not underestimate the potential for travelers and for the tourism sector in each one of those remote destinations.
Absolutely, because a lot of the city travelers are coming from outside to get medical support, to get education, to get shopping, to get all of those things. And I cannot leave the temptation to actually take advantage of what you said on the skills, because that's what we do in the university sector, and particularly in my university, Bournemouth University. We train the new brains of the future to take advantage of all those technologies and see how we can take that forward. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are half the way through, and I'd like to ask you, all of you, to stand up for a minute. Can you stand up for a minute? Stand up? Stand up? It's really about getting a little bit of blood circulation. And I'd like you to open your hands like that. And I'd like you to think that we are transforming now to 2030. Zoom. That's 12 years. We are transforming to 2030, okay? And then I'll ask, you can sit now, thank you very much. You got a little bit of exercise, excellent. Now I'll ask the panel to start thinking about what technologies are going to drive us to 2030. We've already landed to 2030, right? We had this kind of nice kind of parallel. So, Jackson, what technologies do you think are going to drive us? And what do you think is going to be happening in 2030?
Sure, sure. One of the technologies I think is something we've discussed, which is big data. And I did want to go back just quickly to your query
I'm
about...
sorry, but we landed already on 2030, okay?
But it applies to the future, about silos, right, and about collaboration. Because I have a very good example where, in fact, 3 of the participants on this panel came together from Google and Mastercard, as well as cities, as well as academics. And so we've talked a lot about what happens in terms of improving experiences, but what happens when things go very, very wrong?
So in 2030, things are not going to go wrong because...
Oh, okay, well, things will not go as wrong as they could, but sometimes bad things happen. Take, for instance, the Zika virus. This is something we can't control, or Ebola. Talk about earthquakes. Talk about bad weather incidents. Right, so we've all gotten together. In fact, it's essentially all of the participants here, and this is a great example of collaboration where we did not silo things. We essentially have created with UNICEF, yet another organization that UNWTO has some relation to create what's called the Magic Box. And what this is it's a box with a lot of data in it. And that data from Google, because they've got a little bit of data on their servers. Mastercard's got a lot of payment data. We've got travel data. Telefonica has telecommunications data. Put all of that into a box, and when something bad happens, it churns out information that's usable through an algorithm. And that particular information then helps you decide where to focus your resources, because you have a limited amount of resources. It helps you to understand what people are thinking on social media. It also helps you to essentially communicate with the people. And with this sort of thing, especially in a disaster, it saves lives. So we're only in a prototype stage right now, but what I see in the future is that when any of these things hit, again, we can't control it. Look at the earthquakes that have happened in Japan, you know, all these adverse weather events, but we'll be able to quickly react because all the players on this panel and their companies and all the companies related are going to get together, and we're going to put our data into these boxes, and what's going to come out is something usable that, again, is going to save people's lives. And so it will be a better place in 2030.
Okay, great. So I'm changing the rules a little bit. So I'm going to ask everybody to go and add something else. Okay, so what Jackson said, really big data, that we're going to go on the cloud somehow, and we'll do data mining to actually improve situations and experience, particularly during crisis management. Crisis, when you have got crisis or things that can go wrong, you've got an element of unpredictability that will kind of look into the data and optimize situations based on what we've got. Yeah?
That's right. And cities and municipalities, they have a duty of care not just to their residents, but to their visitors. And the visitors are the ones that are usually in less, as not as good a situation, perhaps, as somebody
because they don't know the area.
Exactly, they don't know. So what will they use? They will use Google. They'll use, you know, this magic box. We'll be able to give out information to people that's usable, and to the authorities, and to anybody who's interested. And with this sort of connection, I think, yeah, again, a better place in 2030.
Fantastic. Fabio, how do you feel to be in 2030? We landed, and what do you see happening around?
Yeah, if I could add something in what Jackson said, more and more I see people that come to São Paulo, for example, to visit São Paulo, being what they want to be, and that is to be one of us there in the city.
Be a local.
Yeah, be a local. I mean, do what we do in São Paulo, eat what we eat, go places that we go with our families, and through technology we can improve the mobility, we can improve the safety, and then we're gonna have streets with less cars and more streets closed for culture, for presentations, for art, and for just hanging around the city, which is very good to do. I mean, that's how I see.
So
I see the
basically,
city.
authentic experiences, being a local, take advantage of all the resources that you've got, like a local person, because now you can find all the information, and be safe and understand mobility a little bit better. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yael, if I come to you?
Well, first of all, I couldn't agree more with Fabio. That was my initial answer, so I'm gonna add to it. They talked earlier today about sustainability, so a bit more connect to the local communities, volunteer maybe at where you're staying. There's a lot of talking about the footprints of travelers, so connect to the community, contribute to the place you're visiting, not only use the resources, but kind of give back somehow while you're spending your time in a different destination.
I hear sustainability somewhere at the back of that.
Yeah,
Kind of
that's what I said.
social responsibility,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
sustainability, engaging with the local communities and be part of the community.
Exactly.
I'm not only taking out, I'm giving something
I'm giving
back.
something.
And the co-creation that's happening between the visitor and the local. I'm not sure if we are always ready for that. A lot of people are advocating for these things, but I'm not sure that we're always ready
Well,
for
we're
that.
talking about 2030, so we'll be ready by then.
Yeah, but that's a good place to be. Lee, is that something that you see your travelers wanting and engaging with authentic experiences?
네, 저희 같은 경우에도 이제 가장 이 비즈니스라는 데 있어서 주안점을 맞췄던 거는 로컬 익스피리언스, 그러니까 로컬들이 정말 하는, 그러니까 남들 여행자들이 그냥 뻔히 가는 여행지라든지 이런 데만 가지 말고 로컬들이 하는 체험을 하고 이제 정말 로컬처럼 여행을 하자라는 차원에서 마이럴트를 만들었기 때문에 이런 경향에 관해서 이제 굉장히 동의를 하고요. 이제 2030년 이야기가 나왔으니까 하나 덧붙이고 싶은 얘기는, 저는 여러 가지 트렌드 중에서 그 AI, 그 인공지능 트렌드에 관심이 많고, 또 인공지능이 여러 가지 부분들을 혁신을 할 텐데, 그 부분에 있어서 가장 관심이 있는 분야는 교통, 차량, 모빌리티 쪽입니다. 그래서 제가 지금 보니까 글로벌하게 봤을 때 가장 탑 탤런트, 그러니까 가장 뭐랄까 인재들은 다 우버라든지 그랩이라든지 이런 이제 모빌리티 회사들에 들어가고 있고, 굉장히 많은 벤처 캐피탈들이라든지 투자은행들의 이제 자금도 그쪽으로 흘러가고 있거든요. 그래서 저 같은 경우에는 그 지금의 모빌리티는 어떻게 보면은 그냥 내가 있는 곳으로 택시를 부르는 약간 라이드 헤일링, 이제 그런 쪽에 이제 굉장히 초점이 맞춰져 있지만, 전 앞으로의 모빌리티 같은 경우에는 이제 자율 자동차, 그러니까 이런 인공지능을 바탕으로 한 자율 자동차가 굉장히 전 세계에 쫙 깔리게 될 거고, 사실 여행자들이 여행자로서 겪는 대부분의 어려움은 이런 이동해서 오는 경우들이 되게 많거든요. 근데 완전 아주 물 흐르듯이 심리스한 이렇게 내가 이제 그 이동 경험을 되게 주는 시대가 2030년도 정도에 그 AI 덕분에 오지 않을까라고 생각을 하고 있습니다.
Thank you. Artificial intelligence, machine-to-machine learning.
Yeah.
So the systems will speak to each other. And then what's going to happen is that we'll optimize different kind of things. Mobility is the obvious one. I dare say that by 2030 we'll have drones. So we're not going to rely on roads. The roads will be smart roads. So the car will talk to the road. The car will optimize, because currently what you have is you've got a subsystem with the taxis and hailing a taxi and where the taxi is. But if I know where each resource is and I hail that resource, it can be, and the resource talks to the road because it's an intelligent system, then eventually all of those things will come together. So it will be optimization really of everything we've got.
Dimitri, can I add to that? Because yes, as we're looking at 2030, we already have embedded a lot of these technologies, and in the field of transit and mobility, interoperability is critical, and that's what we're working on now. So it is, how can you have protocols to expedite, for example, the transit through the tube in London, but actually develop a solution that can be used in the Singapore metro station with the hardware that they have, in the metro in Mexico, in the metro in Chicago, and how with this analytics we can actually, especially the transportation system, who has the data on who the consumers are, and that actually the consumer has the app or has the wearable, can actually receive a notification from the transportation system telling them your route, which you usually take, is actually down now. Take this other route, will take you 3 minutes. Or like we tested in Chicago with the system, with the metro system in Chicago and a couple of other startups and data companies, which was for the Chicago transit system to actually send a notification with an incentive and say, now, later on, you'll be better if you travel at this time. This is the incentive, a lower fare or a faster ride. And consumers will respond to that. So this interoperability that you were talking about is clearly important.
I'm glad that because it was on the first slides, I said smartness is all about interconnectivity, interoperability.
It is.
And it's really about systems working together as networks.
It is about inclusion. So again, the point of my fellow panelists is that we have to make these solutions for the visitors as well as for the citizens. We have transit systems now where the citizens are going by, tapping their wearable or tapping their debit card, their credit card, and then you come in and you're like, okay, I'll use mine, and then you're tapping your card, and it doesn't allow you to go because your card is from Spain, it's not from that destination. So making the systems interoperable, and this is why it's again about an ecosystem, because the issuer can do that. I mean, the transit system can do that. We can provide the technology, but bringing it all together and then, seeing it in all the cities is what we should be seeing in 2030, advancing. Just want to clarify the point about the black box is, again, I mean, it has to be about insights. It's never individualized information that can actually be provided.
That's right. By 2030, we're going to have to really balance things. Because right now we have GDPR, we have a raft of data regulations. So speaking as a lawyer, in the black box, everything is anonymized. If we have credit card data, we know that money's being spent, but we don't know who's spending it. We don't know who's flying places, right? We just need to know the trends, because from that, we have information that's usable.
It depends which side you look at from. Because if I'm the user and I'd like to fetch information, I may choose not to be anonymous, or I may like to keep some of the information anonymous. But when you aggregate information that's coming from different suppliers, you anonymize in order to do the planning and the marketing kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it should be your choice, Dimitrios. It has to be your choice as the consumer. Do I want to be anonymous, or am I going to reveal my own information? And that's going to allow more personalized offers and things like that. But there's always the other side, which is that you may not want to be revealed.
Right. So 2030 Dionisis, you landed there.
Just landed. I still feel a bit dizzy and a bit jet lagged, but feeling fine. 2030. I see two scenarios. A bright one, which is some of the things that we are already seeing taking off, like for instance, leveraging public and private crowd-funded data to improve transportation with great positive environmental impacts for cities. with Google, in Google we have a program with Waze called Connected Citizens that we work with municipalities around the world. We worked with the municipality of Ghent in Belgium. I spent there 10 years. I love the place. So by combining private and public data on this platform, which is kind of a map sharing information on traffic, etc., the city of Ghent managed to decrease traffic jams by 40% and increase the use of bikes, somebody mentioned that before, bicycles by 27%. It was a much more people-friendly city. So I think we see a lot of great things happening already. So one scenario, all these take off. We travel, we won't need mobile phones, we don't need any other gadgets. It's something simpler, I don't know, augmented reality,
Wearable.
something. It could be, artificial intelligence is definitely a big thing here, and I think it's great to see innovation coming from small players, big players, local, global. I think that's the beauty of artificial intelligence. So that's one scenario. And the other scenario is a dark one. We are in 2030, we look back in 2018 and we said, wow, we missed the point. We didn't build the infrastructure. We didn't invest in digital skills. We did not allow data platforms to, or people to thrive through data and platforms, and we just missed the point.
I think that is not very possible. What's going to happen is those who do the innovations, those who invest, those who take advantage of all the things that we've got, will be in a much better position, and they'll be on competitive advantage.
I hope that's going to be the scenario, but we heard before about GDPR, which is a fact, is what Europe has decided to go on with in terms of privacy. Is the GDPR perfect? No regulation is perfect, obviously. Are there any other examples which are probably looking better? Yes, I think CBPR, the APEC approach proposal, is, I think, in a better stage. It doesn't create obstacles in the digital world. Singapore is a great example of a country being really forward-thinking, and we heard great things from Singapore earlier. Japan is another one, and there are many other good examples in the region and around the world. So I just hope for each one of us and for my kids that in 2030 they will really have fun when they travel around. They are safe when they travel around. I've used so many times open data platforms which show you the level of incidents and criminal activities in a city where I'm about to visit with my family. It's a lifesaver before you book a hotel. So there's so many, that's a great things out there for each one of us as consumers, and I hope we and our kids will benefit from that in 2030.
Fantastic. Okay. Anything else on 2030, or can I open the floor to questions and see what was happening? Open the floor to questions. Can I ask my friend to be here and say what we need to do? And also, because I'm an old guy and I like old-fashioned things occasionally, anybody who really likes to ask a question, please stand up and we'll find a way to come to you as well, yeah?
Okay. So once again, as I mentioned before, you have to use the QR code to download the application, and then if you go to program, you can upload your questions on the session talk menu. So I think our staff is going to show us the screen, and we'll be able to see the questions once
Do we have to say
they are
abracadabra, or it happens
posted.
automatically? Abracadabra, no? It happens automatically, okay.
So here on the left-hand side, you can see session talk. So
Right.
if you press that menu, you can upload your questions.
Okay.
So I think we need to wait a few more minutes before the first question is uploaded.
I think you had so much food for thought. There must be some very, very interesting questions coming through.
Professor,
Hello.
here, it's Fabio here.
Fabio,
While the people are still
Yeah.
writing the questions, I would like to add something. We're talking about data, and maybe some of the participants say, okay, that's the answer of all my questions, but it's not. I mean, the data is the way. We need people. We need to analyze that before we take decisions. So that's one thing that we must have in
Absolutely.
mind.
And that needs knowledge management, and that needs brains. It means people to understand, and then it takes leadership. Leadership both from the private sector and the public sector, like Dionisis was saying, to engage in this kind of conversation and to understand what we do with the data. A lot of my students are producing fantastic statistics, and I always ask them, what does that mean? You really need to have the brain and the knowledge management skills to analyze that. Dionisis?
Do you have questions coming in already? Or?
They are coming in a minute.
Okay, may I ask a question? And it's primarily for the destinations on the panel. We talk about digital skills and the difficulty from some destinations and some companies to find people to manage digital data, the whole digital world. Do you have any good examples to share from your country, region, whatever, so that probably others feel that it's doable? It's not like a mission impossible on how to build skills.
They come to do my masters, remember? They do the masters, they get the skills, they go back to their destination, they understand. And this is exactly what's happening. A lot of my students are ending up in technology companies or destinations or tourism companies dealing with the innovations that they're going forward.
I think in Tel Aviv, the answer for this question is it's about culture. Tel Aviv is known for embracing high-tech companies, startups, and allowing them to be creative, be innovative, and go wild with ideas. And it comes for many reasons. Tel Aviv is known for that. But I think the idea is to allow to open your databases. I'm sure some of you heard of MoveIt, which is a transportation application. We just talked about it. It was first used in Sao Paulo in the Olympic Games in 2016. And basically, it's an application made in Tel Aviv, and the municipality opened the database and say, come find a solution for transportation. Okay, so once you share the information, once you share your database, and you invite all those brains and minds who did their masters and degrees, you find solution and you enjoy both technology, data, and creativity. So it comes back to culture. Allow it, embrace it, encourage it. That's what I think.
The control is telling me that we've got a little bit of a technical problem. So let's do some analog questions. Anybody who has got a question? Can you come a little bit forward, please, and we'll send a microphone to you. And anybody else who would like to ask a question, please raise your hand so we can see. We do it the old analog way. If you can come a little bit forward, we'll bring a microphone to you. Microphone is coming now. Microphone 1, microphone 2, microphone 3. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much, Mr.
Would you like to say who you are, where you're coming from?
Of course, my name is Mohammed Daud. I'm from the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture of Malaysia.
Malaysia.
It's a very interesting panelist. Thank you so much for your information. I'll go straight to the point. It's about the integrity of the data and the ethical problem. I think you got this question all the time. But I just give you some experience of mine. I would not mention the company. They came to us to promote the big data analysis so that we can do a better marketing effort to promote tourists to come to our country. But it goes way beyond, to my surprise, that they said that they can assist a certain country, anybody in the world who tried to search to go to a particular country, they can target that promotion straight to that particular person so that they will log in, they will go to your country specifically. So, where do we draw the line?
I think the first thing is that don't believe the salesman all the time.
That's right.
The second thing is, Diana, would you like to take that? So there were some promises that people will lock into the customer.
Meaning that the big data, the company can influence anybody looking for information for one particular country before they make a decision to travel, that they can influence and advertise so that particular person will definitely go to that destination.
I think the definite things is iffy, but I think what they were saying was looking to their online behavior,
Right.
they will target them with advertising.
Right.
Yeah?
But that limits the choice for the people to make a free choice rather than being targeted and push this advertisement.
Yeah, I don't know if this will answer your question, but at the end of the day, when you have aggregated data, let's say from origin into a destination, and knowing their behaviors, you can start modeling the data, create a model, and understand what is the profile of that segment that actually fits your offer at destination. As these models are developed, then they provide the basis for creating a targeted campaign. So that's usually what is used for destination. Now, we have a division, and back to the point that we were just talking about, how do you actually bring the know-how into companies? Mastercard, as part of the efforts in working with big data, we bought an artificial intelligence machine learning company, Applied Predictive Technology, just for them, just to gain that insight, get that knowledge instead of us developing internally. And what those guys do is they do have an engine with algorithms, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, which allows them to do test and learn until the profiling for that consumer, has very little variation, and then you have a very effective campaign. I don't know if that's what answered your question.
Pretty much.
All right.
Okay. I guess the other thing is that advertising will always happen, but the consumers will learn how to protect themselves from advertising. There is a lady at the back that's wearing red, yeah? Can you stand up for a minute? Yeah? Did you wear red? No, you wear black, okay. Can you give the microphone to that lady? And in the meanwhile, there's one question up there that says, in an increasingly open digitized world, how do destinations cater to tourists who want authentic and exclusive, non-commoditized type of experiences? So the non-commoditized, who is Russell? Say hello, who is Russell? Hello. The commoditized kind, the non-commoditized is the difficult thing because it's primarily non-business for business. That will, let's take this question, and in 1 second I'll be with you, okay? At least you've got the microphone.
We can talk about services that are commodities, but maybe we can change it into non-commoditized. For example, in São Paulo, we have the tourist information centers that are vans, and they can go anywhere. And we go through social media, and we analyze what people are saying about the attractions, and we can decide where to take this service, which is a commodity, to where people really go. You don't need to go to the tourist information center. The tourist information center goes to you. So maybe we can work this way. We could change a service that is a commodity to a non-commoditized.
Yeah, I've got two answers to that. One is my experience in Hawaii when I was looking for the Hawaii 5.0. I ended up with a person that's called themselves Agent 75 or something like that. That's a person, it's a commodity, it's a node in the community. And that person is bringing all the information together about Hawaii 5.0 and circulates that, and then you become a node of this community. That's one experience. The other experience is, if you look into TripAdvisor on the forum, not on the reviews, there are a lot of people who are offering a lot of non-commoditized experience from a destination. Okay, you've got the microphone, stand up. And say who you are, yeah?
Hello, I'm Hannah Go from South Korea. I would just say I'm a traveler, tourist. Thank you for all your broadened views of the future urban tourism. And I would like to ask you about the picture of 2030 having a massive clouds. It could be a bit out of topic, but combining all the data together, if that happens, who or where or what do you think should take in charge of the massive information could be, global, it could be private, and could be risky. So maybe another committee of the UN should be organized or something. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's really the control of the information, really. Yeah, I think we had a little bit of that. Jackson?
Sure. My hope is that the consumer will always retain the power over his or her information. So in other words, if you're going to use any of the platforms that may be represented here, there are terms and conditions, again, being a lawyer, having written those terms, that essentially you consent in some cases to the use of your information, usually on an anonymized basis. So who's going to handle it? It's going to be handled disparately by governments, it's going to be handled by the private sector, by academic institutions. But again, the power needs to be with the consumer, I think, ultimately, to make those decisions.
Okay, so the consumer has the power, but where the data
Can
sits.
I add? Yeah, I mean, obviously the consumer has the power. I'm sorry.
That's okay, yeah, okay. Ladies first and all the rest of it, yeah.
But whoever is managing the tourism in the city, so that will be the tourism companies or the Ministry of Tourism, needs to know how to hold and manage the information according to all the privacy matters, of course. But if I know what kind of tourists from which country at a certain age, what their preferences are, then I'm not hurting the privacy of any tourist, and still I have a lot of information which other tourists can learn from and rely on, because a good experience will get better grades and better recommendations. So it's a reliable information managed by tourism manager.
Lee?
네, 아까 그 개인정보 이슈와 이어지는 질문인 것 같은데요. 이렇게 실제로 되게 회사들이 가진 정보나 뭐 수집하는 데이터가 굉장히 거대화되면서 그 유럽 같은 경우에는 이제 굉장히 강한 법규가 생기기도 했고, 한국 같은 경우에도 이제 저희 같은 경우에도 이제 법규가 계속 강력해짐에 따라 저희도 그 가이드라인에 맞춰서 지금 계속 서비스 약관도 바꾸고 저희가 수집하는 데이터의 종류도 축소를 하고 있는데, 근데 이제 가장 민간에서 혹은 이제 그 전체적으로 미래적으로 봤을 때 가장 이런 거에 있어서 약간 진보적인 운동이 저는 블록체인 기술이야말로 사실은 굉장히 이런 움직임 중에 하나라고 생각을 하는데요. 이제 블록체인 같은 경우 이렇게 한 곳에 거대화되고 집중화되는 게 굉장히 위험하다는 발상에서 사실은 탈중앙화, 그러니까 굉장히 분산화시키고 탈중앙화시킴으로써 이러한 한 곳에 독점되는 현상을 되게 피하고자 하는 그런 기술인 거고, 여행 업계 쪽에도 굉장히 재밌는 시도가 있는 것 같아요. 첫 번째로 일단 한국은 아시겠지만 이제 블록체인이나 그런 쪽에서 가장 발달한 나라 중에 하나고요. 전 세계 중에 하나고, 그리고 이제 여행 업계에서 보게 되면 제가 최근에 봤던 한 회사는 에어비앤비 같은 이제 회사 같은 경우에도 너무 그 호스트들에 대한 데이터라든지 게스트들에 대한 데이터가 그들 입장에선 본인들이 신뢰성을 담보한다라는 그 이유로 너무 자기들이 모아놓고 활용한다. 그래서 우리는 블록체인으로 에어비앤비 같은 모델을 하되 되게 우리는 데이터를 이렇게 저장하거나 모으지 않는다라는 하는 회사를 본 적이 있었거든요. 그래서 약간 블록체인 기술에 관한 얘기를 답변을 드리고 싶었습니다. 네.
Thank you very much. I know I've got one more question. Can I see hands of any other questions that you may have? I'm negotiating with our friends here to keep going if you've got more questions. Let's see, are there any other questions? You've got one more there, okay? Any more? I cannot see. Okay, 2, 3 more questions, okay? Because the dinner is next door anyway.
So since we're negotiating, can I make a suggestion? Why don't we take all the questions first, and then maybe the panelists can answer.
I like your approach. Okay.
All right.
So we've got microphone. Can the people who like to ask questions stand up for a minute, please? Stand up? Okay. Ask your first question. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Professor Chomani. And thanks for the approach. I agree with the approach too. And actually, my question is simple. So firstly, I introduce we are the outbound travel, current travel platform of China. And talking about the data of 2030 vision, we are thinking that, like for example, the world's tourism tendency is going to more customized, more about experience, And for self-drive tourisms, mostly tourists can drive with more freedom and also more convenience. But one of our confusions is that data has shown that customers feels like to drive or to experience more customized experience in most countries. But for the policies, some countries, they did not recognize each other's, for example, like driver license. But the data strongly supports that. In that case, how could maybe as a private company or as an association, how could we deliver the data information maybe to the regarding department or regarding government to figure out the solutions?
Okay, thank you. So it's basically recognition between different governments on the requirements that you've got between different data, if I understood the question correct, yeah? Jackson is smiling, yes?
Sure. We deal with that type of issue all the time because Amadeus has to transmit data across borders, right? We have our data center in Germany, and that particular data has to go to basically every country that has an airline that's flying. We have to adhere, generally if you adhere to the strictest standards, then that will be acceptable to the other countries. So what they've done is bilaterally and multilaterally, they've sort of negotiated agreements to say this is what is acceptable to us, this is what is not acceptable to us. And so fortunately, being a European company, the restrictions are usually the most stringent. And so therefore, going into other countries, we don't have that many problems. Now, the opposite could happen for somebody from a country that's not so regulated, in which case I would say hire a lawyer, actually.
Jackson is a lawyer, by the way.
That's
yeah?
right.
Okay, quick question, please. Thank you so much.
Hi.
Would you like to say who you are?
Hi, I'm a student majoring in culture and tourism, and I want to be a professor majoring in tourism. So, as you said, technology, especially big data, is really important. So, I want to ask you to professionals, and do I have to learn about how to deal with and use big data skills and data analysis? Because someone said I don't have to because there are technicians who can work for me. But I mean, does studying big data skills helps you to get your position, your job? So
Okay.
do I have to?
I'll answer this as a professor, right? So in order to become a professor, you need to be able to do research. And that is, you're doing a doctorate and you're doing research on a particular area that you are interested. You may not need to do the technical thing because the other people may do, but you need to choose where you like to specialize. And speak to me afterwards, I can get you on the right path for that. There's a gentleman there that you want to ask a question, right? Can I see how many people would like to ask questions? Okay, this gentleman and the lady at the back, and then we'll stop, okay?
I'm Aftab from Pakistan. There's a fear that the technology advancement in tourism sector has concentrated the power of business in few hands. And the small